The night was thick with a tense, almost tangible silence. Streetlights flickered in the distance as if struggling against an encroaching darkness, while a solitary figure moved with purposeful determination along the cracked sidewalk. This was no ordinary night. This was the night that would mark the beginning of an uprising, the night when evil cops met their match. Elias Carter had always been an ordinary citizen, quiet, observant, and respectful of the law. Yet, beneath his calm exterior simmered a passion for justice that could no longer be contained. For months, Elias had silently watched his community suffer under the oppressive hand of corrupt law enforcement. He had seen firsthand how some officers twisted rules to serve their own interests, how they bullied and intimidated the innocent. What had once been a city of trust was rapidly descending into a playground for those who believed themselves above the law. It was on this fateful evening that Elias's life took a dramatic turn. As he walked home from a late shift at a local diner, he noticed a commotion at the corner of Main and Fifth. The usually quiet intersection was now teeming with flashing red and blue lights, and a small crowd had gathered. His instincts told him that something was wrong. Clutching his camera, the tool that had become his silent voice of dissent, Elias edged closer to the unfolding drama. At the center of the gathering stood a group of uniformed officers. Their voices were raised, their expressions hardened by arrogance and entitlement. The source of their ire was a local shop owner, Ms. Lena Morales, who had long been a vocal critic of police misconduct. According to bystanders, Ms. Morales had attempted to protest the unjust seizure of her property, a seizure that she believed was orchestrated by a crooked officer aiming to settle old scores. As Elias discreetly recorded the scene, the tension in the air grew thicker. One officer, whose badge was smeared with the grime of indifference, barked orders at Ms. Morales, his tone laced with contempt. "You need to move along," he spat, his eyes narrowing as he glared at her. "Your protest is disrupting the peace." The crowd murmured, a mix of fear and defiance stirring in their hearts. Elias's heart pounded in his chest. He had heard rumors of such abuses before, whispered in hushed tones among neighbors and exchanged over coffee in dimly lit diners. But witnessing it firsthand stirred something deep within him, a sense of urgency that compelled him to act. It wasn't just about Ms. Morales, nor was it only about the blatant abuse of power. It was about reclaiming dignity and reasserting the rights of every citizen in the community. Before he could decide whether to intervene, a sharp command cut through the chaos. "Step back now," boomed the voice of the officer in charge, a man known to the locals simply as Sergeant Harlan. With an unsettling mix of authority and menace, he advanced toward Ms. Morales, ignoring her pleading eyes. In that moment, Elias knew that silence would be complicity. The world was watching, and he had the power to capture the truth. Without a second thought, Elias stepped forward into the light. His presence startled the officers, who were unaccustomed to being challenged by a mere civilian armed only with a camera and an unwavering resolve. "Excuse me," Elias said, his voice steady but filled with quiet determination. "I'm recording this interaction. I believe everyone has the right to document what's happening here." Sergeant Harlan's face twisted into a sneer as he glared at Elias. "You've got no business here," he growled. "This isn't a playground for journalists." The tension escalated as more officers converged on the scene, their eyes glinting with a mixture of anger and disbelief. The air seemed to crackle with imminent conflict. Ms. Morales, though shaken, found her voice. "Officer, I'm just trying to speak my truth," she pleaded, her tone trembling yet defiant. "I have done nothing wrong." But the officer's answer was a curt dismissal, his tone leaving no room for discussion. "Your truth is not my concern," he retorted coldly. The officers began to form a circle, isolating Ms. Morales and Elias alike, as if to stifle any dissent. Elias's mind raced. He knew that this moment was more than a mere altercation. It was a spark that could ignite a much larger flame. He had spent countless nights researching his rights, gathering evidence of police abuses, and sharing them on social media. Now, standing face to face with corruption incarnate, he realized that his silent resistance was no longer enough. The people needed a hero, someone to stand up and say, "Enough is enough." Just then, as if on cue, a siren wailed in the distance, drawing the attention of the gathered crowd. A new patrol car pulled up, its lights flashing a deceptive promise of law and order. The fresh arrival added another layer of tension to the already volatile scene. Elias seized the moment, capturing every detail as the new officers assessed the situation with clinical detachment. Were they sent to restore order, or were they simply another cog in a machine of systemic injustice? Sergeant Harlan, unperturbed by the added presence, barked further orders. "Disperse and move along, or you'll be detained for obstructing official duties." His voice boomed over the hum of the gathered voices, yet it only served to heighten the discord. The crowd murmured, some backing away in fear while others clutched their smartphones, ready to record any sign of abuse. Elias felt his pulse quicken as he edged closer to the center of the unfolding drama. With each word exchanged, the lines between right and wrong blurred, and he knew that the consequences of this moment would ripple far beyond the intersection of Main and Fifth. He could feel the eyes of the community on him, a community tired of fear, craving justice, and desperate for change. In a sudden, defiant act, Elias raised his camera high, ensuring it captured every nuance of the confrontation. "This is what happens when people stand up for their rights," he declared, his voice carrying over the murmurs of the crowd. "Today we hold the power. Today we demand accountability." His words hung in the air like a challenge, daring the officers to justify their actions. For a moment silence reigned. The officers exchanged uneasy glances, and even Sergeant Harlan's steely demeanor seemed to waver. In that suspended heartbeat, the fragile balance of power tilted. The crowd, emboldened by Elias's courage, began to speak up in unison, voices rising in a chorus of indignation against the misuse of authority. But just as hope began to shimmer on the horizon, the tension took a sudden, ominous turn. Without warning, a heavy, authoritative knock resounded from behind the assembled officers. Every head turned as a tall, imposing figure emerged from the shadows, a figure whose presence immediately commanded respect and quieted the murmuring crowd. It was a man known only as Commander Reyes, the head of the local internal affairs division, whose reputation for investigating police misconduct was as formidable as the cases he had dismantled. Commander Reyes surveyed the scene with a piercing gaze that seemed to strip away the layers of pretense and corruption. "What is going on here?" he demanded, his voice measured but carrying an undeniable force. The officers straightened, their earlier bravado faltering as they sensed that their actions were now under scrutiny. Ms. Morales, Elias, and the crowd all held their breath, aware that the arrival of internal affairs could either lead to the long-sought justice or plunge the situation into even deeper chaos. Sergeant Harlan stepped forward, attempting to regain control. "Sir, this is merely a minor disturbance. We're handling it." But Commander Reyes's eyes bore into him, unyielding. "Minor disturbances have a way of becoming major problems when rights are trampled on. I want a full account of what transpired here," he ordered. His words were both a promise and a threat, a commitment to expose the truth and a warning to those who thought they could operate with impunity. Elias clutched his camera even tighter, knowing that the recorder in his hand might be the only evidence to tell the story if everything else were silenced. The balance of power had shifted once more, and as he witnessed the nervous energy ripple through the officers, he wondered, was this the turning point his community had been waiting for? As Commander Reyes began questioning the officers, a palpable uncertainty filled the air. The officers' earlier confidence crumbled under the weight of accountability. Meanwhile, Elias's determination burned brighter than ever, but he couldn't shake the feeling that this confrontation was merely the opening act of a much larger battle, a battle that was far from over. Suddenly, from the corner of his eye, Elias noticed a figure moving stealthily away from the crowd. It was as if someone or something was deliberately slipping away, avoiding the emerging chaos. Who could that be? An accomplice to the corrupt system, or perhaps someone with even darker intentions? Elias's curiosity was piqued, and as he adjusted his camera for a closer shot, the figure paused at the edge of the lamplight, glancing back as if aware of being watched. Before Elias could capture a clear image or deduce the stranger's identity, the figure melted into the night, leaving behind a chilling sense of foreboding. The arrival of Commander Reyes had certainly stirred the pot, but now, the mysterious departure of this unknown individual hinted at an even more intricate web of intrigue. What secrets did this shadow hold? And how would it tie into the unfolding drama of corruption and defiance? With the officers now scrambling to explain their actions under the unyielding scrutiny of internal affairs, and the crowd buzzing with both hope and anxiety, Elias felt a shiver of anticipation. He realized that the confrontation was evolving, its stakes growing higher by the minute. As the night deepened, so too did the mystery. The fate of the community, the integrity of the law, and the courage of one determined citizen were now intertwined in a battle where the outcome was far from certain. And in that charged moment, as Elias recorded every word, every gesture, and every whispered speculation, he knew one thing for sure. This was just the beginning. The real test was yet to come. The true match between power and the people was about to be decided, and the shadow of that elusive figure promised that the next act would be even more explosive. The early hours of dawn brought with them a restless energy that matched the tumult of the previous night. In the muted light of a pre-dawn sky, whispers of unrest spread like wildfire throughout the neighborhood. The confrontation at the intersection had become the talk of the town, and while many held on to hope for change, others in the shadows sensed that something far more insidious was unfolding. Elias Carter found himself restless in the hours after the incident. The images captured on his camera replayed relentlessly in his mind, a record of defiance, betrayal, and the ominous shadow of an unknown figure. Commander Reyes's forceful interrogation of the officers had set the stage for a public reckoning. But deep down, Elias knew that the night's drama was merely the surface of a much larger conspiracy. Determined to uncover every hidden layer, he prepared himself for what might come next. That morning, while most of the city still slept, Elias met with a small group of trusted allies at an abandoned warehouse that served as a temporary headquarters for local activists. The group, a mix of tech-savvy citizens, legal experts, and concerned residents, had been working covertly to document police misconduct. Now, with the recent footage and the mysterious disappearance of a shadowy figure, their resolve was stronger than ever. Inside the dimly lit space, Elias spread out his footage on a makeshift table, pointing to the moment the elusive figure had slipped away. "There's more to this than what we saw," he asserted. "That person wasn't just avoiding capture, they were watching, planning, maybe even orchestrating this chaos." His voice, though hushed, carried a conviction that resonated with the others. Mara, a sharp-witted digital forensic specialist, leaned in to examine the grainy image. "I've seen similar tactics before," she murmured, tapping her tablet as she enhanced the frame. "It's almost as if someone knew exactly when to step in and then vanish. It might be an insider, a mole within the system, or perhaps even someone linked to a rival faction of law enforcement." Her eyes darted around the room, as if fearing that someone might be listening. Meanwhile, Andre, a seasoned attorney known for taking on high-profile civil rights cases, paced back and forth. "If the footage confirms a conspiracy at this level, we could be looking at an entire network of corrupt practices. This isn't just about a single bad cop, it's an institutional rot." His tone was laced with urgency, echoing the sentiments of a community fed up with abuse of power. As the discussion deepened, a knock on the warehouse door jolted them from their intense deliberations. The sound was cautious, almost tentative, and everyone fell silent. After a few heavy moments, the door creaked open to reveal a young woman with eyes that held both fear and determination. "I'm Anna," she whispered, scanning the room with a mixture of relief and anxiety. "I've been following your work for months. I have information about tonight's events, and something that might explain that mysterious figure." Elias gestured for her to come in. "Tell us everything, Anna," he urged softly. "We need every piece of this puzzle." With trembling hands, Anna unfolded her story, a tale that hinted at a secret alliance within the police department. According to her, there were whispers of a clandestine group working behind the scenes, orchestrating events to maintain the status quo at all costs. This group, she claimed, was responsible not only for the heavy-handed tactics witnessed at the intersection, but also for manipulating evidence and even intimidating whistleblowers. Her voice trembled as she revealed documents and internal memos that painted a disturbing picture. Names of officers, dates, and transactions that hinted at bribery and cover-ups. "They call themselves the Network," Anna explained, her eyes glistening with both anger and sorrow. "They're not just enforcing the law, they're using it as a tool for their own gain." The revelation struck a chord with everyone in the room. It was one thing to encounter rogue officers. It was another to discover an organized syndicate within the very ranks meant to protect and serve. Andre took the documents, scanning their contents with practiced precision. "If what you're saying is true," he said slowly, "this could be the smoking gun we need to dismantle their entire operation. But we need to be cautious. These are dangerous people. If they suspect we have this information, they won't hesitate to silence us." His eyes met Elias's, and in that shared glance was the unspoken understanding that they were now in a battle where the stakes were far higher than personal safety. They were fighting for the soul of their community. Outside the warehouse, the city began to stir, its inhabitants unaware of the storm brewing in their midst. The internal affairs investigation led by Commander Reyes had already begun to put pressure on the officers involved. But the revelations from Anna hinted at a far more insidious scheme. The network's influence stretched deep into the system, and their operatives were likely already watching every move made by those daring enough to challenge the established order. Elias couldn't shake the feeling that the mysterious figure he'd seen the night before was connected to the network. Was it a double agent working within their ranks, or someone from a rival faction trying to expose the truth? The question gnawed at him as he reviewed his footage again, scrutinizing every detail, every shadow, hoping to catch a glimpse of an answer. The contrast between the overt corruption of the officers and the subtle, almost invisible hand guiding events made him realize that power was not only brute force, it was also about deception and misdirection. As the morning unfolded into a tense day, the group split their tasks. Mara set out to verify Anna's documents using encrypted sources and anonymous contacts within the department. Andre reached out to a network of legal experts and journalists, preparing for the possibility of a major exposé. Meanwhile, Elias planned his next move, a stealthy visit to the courthouse where the previous confrontation had taken place, a site now buzzing with the aftershocks of the night's events. He hoped that by revisiting the scene, he might uncover additional clues, perhaps even the identity of the elusive figure captured in his footage. That afternoon, under a sky filled with an unsettling mix of light and shadow, Elias made his way back to the courthouse. The building stood as a silent sentinel, its imposing facade belying the chaos and corruption that had taken root within its walls. Elias felt the weight of history and the burden of truth as he walked its corridors, his every step echoing with the memories of the previous night. He knew that each corner might hide evidence or secrets that could further unravel the twisted network of power. Inside the courthouse, he revisited the exact spot where the confrontation had begun. The echo of voices still seemed to linger in the air, a haunting reminder of the clash between a determined citizen and a system steeped in abuse. As he set up his camera and began recording once again, he noticed something peculiar. A small, almost imperceptible symbol etched into the stone near the entrance. It was a simple design, yet it resonated with a sinister familiarity. Elias traced his fingers over it, his mind racing with possibilities. Had he seen this symbol before, perhaps in one of Anna's documents? The memory was vague, but the feeling was unmistakable, a marker of the network. Just then, the sound of footsteps alerted him to another presence in the deserted hallway. Elias quickly turned, his heart pounding as he saw a figure emerging from the shadows. The person was dressed in dark clothing, their features obscured by a hood. For a moment, Elias froze, uncertainty mingling with a deep sense of foreboding. Who was the stranger and what did they want? Was it an ally, a member of the network, or something even more dangerous? Before he could react, the hooded figure spoke in a low, urgent whisper. "Elias, you need to leave now," the voice hissed. "They're on to you, more than you know." The warning, terse and fraught with danger, sent a chill down his spine. His instincts screamed at him to run, yet curiosity and the thirst for truth held him in place. "Who are you?" he managed to ask, voice barely audible. But the figure only shook their head, stepping back into the darkness, leaving behind more questions than answers. Elias's pulse raced as he recorded every detail. The encounter confirmed his worst suspicions. He was being watched, and his investigation had struck a nerve with powerful, hidden forces. The symbols, the documents, the mysterious warnings. They were all pieces of a puzzle that was rapidly expanding into a labyrinth of corruption and peril. With the courthouse looming behind him like a fortress of secrets, Elias knew that he had to act quickly. He needed to share his findings with his allies and prepare for the inevitable backlash from the network. Back at the warehouse, as dusk began to settle over the city, the group reconvened. Mara had uncovered disturbing links between several high-ranking officers and shadowy financial transactions. Andre had spoken with journalists eager to expose the deeper layers of corruption. And Anna, visibly shaken yet resolute, insisted that more evidence lay hidden in a secure location known only to a few insiders. Elias recounted his encounter at the courthouse, the symbol etched into stone, the hooded stranger's dire warning, and the room fell silent. The gravity of his words sank in. They were no longer merely documenting isolated incidents of abuse. They were unraveling an intricate web that stretched into the heart of the institution itself. Every revelation brought them closer to a truth that was as dangerous as it was necessary. As the meeting drew to a close, Andre leaned forward, his eyes burning with determination. "We have to expose this network, no matter what it takes," he said. "But we need to be smarter, more careful. If they realize we're closing in, they'll come after us, and our families." His warning hung heavily in the air. Elias nodded, steeling himself for the next steps. "We'll proceed cautiously," he promised. "But we cannot allow fear to stop us. The people deserve to know the truth, and we're the ones who have to deliver it." Outside the warehouse, the night deepened, and the city's lights flickered uncertainly as if signaling an impending storm. Elias felt an almost magnetic pull toward the secrets that still lay hidden, toward the shadow of the hooded figure and the cryptic symbol that had haunted his mind since that fateful night. Every step forward was a step into danger, but it was also a step closer to justice, a justice that was long overdue. As Elias prepared to leave and gather additional evidence, his phone buzzed with a message. It was a single line, sent from an unknown number. "The network watches. Trust no one." The message sent a shiver down his spine. In that instant, the magnitude of what they were up against crystallized in his mind. The safe haven of their secret meeting was now compromised, and the forces of corruption were mobilizing in ways he could scarcely imagine. With the city asleep but its undercurrents stirring violently, Elias realized that the battle was far from over. The confrontation had only just begun, and the true cost of defiance was yet to be revealed. In the face of relentless danger, every decision, every piece of evidence, every whispered warning carried the weight of a community's hope, and the threat of its demise. Standing alone in the cold, dim street outside the warehouse, Elias clutched his camera tightly. The night was silent once more, but the echo of the warning resonated in his mind. He had to decide his next move carefully, for every step could bring him closer to the truth or into the jaws of the network. As he walked away from the warehouse into the uncertain darkness, the shadow of that hooded figure lingered in his thoughts, a silent promise of more revelations and deeper peril. The darkness that had shrouded the city for months now seemed to tremble with the promise of change. In the final chapter of this turbulent journey, Elias Carter found himself at the epicenter of a storm that had been building far beyond the confines of a single confrontation. The once muted murmurs of a community had erupted into a roar for justice, and now, as the dawn of reckoning broke over the horizon, the stakes could no longer be ignored. In the days following the secret meeting at the warehouse, Elias and his band of allies had worked tirelessly to gather every shred of evidence linking the network to its sprawling corruption. Mara's digital forensics had unearthed encrypted emails, financial records implicating high-ranking officers, and even a series of internal memos that detailed plans to silence dissent. Anna's documents, combined with testimonies from brave insiders, painted a damning picture of a criminal cabal masquerading as protectors of the law. Meanwhile, Andre coordinated with investigative journalists and legal experts, determined to turn these revelations into a public reckoning. The pressure on the network was mounting. Commander Reyes had taken preliminary steps to launch a formal inquiry, yet the shadowy operatives of the network moved with cunning precision. Elias, ever vigilant, began receiving cryptic messages and subtle threats. The anonymous text that had once warned, "The network watches, trust no one," was quickly followed by a series of foreboding missives. Each message carried an unmistakable warning: back off or face the consequences. But rather than instilling fear, these ominous communications galvanized Elias further. With every piece of evidence collected, the once dormant flame of defiance blazed higher into an inferno of resolve. Late one rainy evening, Elias returned to the now familiar courthouse, the very site where the spark of defiance had ignited. This time, the building was eerily quiet, its marble steps washed clean by the relentless downpour. He had arranged to meet a confidential source, an officer who had secretly become disillusioned with the system from within. The officer, known only as Detective Ramirez, had promised critical information that would finally expose the full extent of the network's operations. Under the cloak of darkness, in a secluded alcove behind the courthouse, Detective Ramirez waited. His eyes, burdened with the weight of betrayal, met Elias's as soon as he stepped into the dim light. "I have what you need," Ramirez said, his voice low and trembling with both fear and relief. "I've been collecting documents, audio recordings, everything that shows how deep this corruption runs. You won't believe the names on these files, Elias. They're not just low-level thugs. They're the very architects of this twisted system." Elias listened intently as Ramirez handed over a small, encrypted drive. "These files," Ramirez continued, "contain detailed reports of bribes, cover-ups, and even orders to intimidate or eliminate whistleblowers. It's all documented, but they've made sure to hide it deep within layers of bureaucratic red tape. I risked everything to get these to you because I believe in justice." The gravity of the situation pressed down on Elias like a leaden weight. He knew that exposing these secrets would not only dismantle the network but could also trigger a wave of public outcry that might upend the entire local law enforcement structure. With trembling hands, Elias secured the drive and promised, "I won't let you down. This is our moment to restore faith in the system and reclaim our city." Within hours of that clandestine meeting, news of the explosive evidence began to leak to the press. A major investigative outlet published a comprehensive report detailing the corruption, complete with damning footage, internal emails, and sworn statements from former officers. The reaction was instantaneous and explosive. Protests erupted in the streets, community leaders rallied, and calls for reform echoed from every corner of the city. The network's operatives scrambled to cover their tracks, but the truth had been set free. On a crowded city square, beneath banners demanding accountability and reform, Commander Reyes stood before an assembled press corps and community members. His normally steely demeanor was replaced by an uncharacteristic air of apprehension. "We are launching a full-scale investigation," he declared. "No one is above the law, and every allegation will be thoroughly examined." The statement, though measured, carried the weight of a promise that the era of unchecked authority was drawing to a close. Elias watched the broadcast from his modest apartment, the culmination of months of peril and perseverance now unfolding on national television. Yet, even as hope surged through the collective heart of the community, Elias knew that the fight was far from over. The network was not a loose collection of disorganized malcontents. It was a sophisticated web of power and influence that had its tendrils in every corner of the institution. The evidence they had released was damning, but it was also a spark in a powder keg. The network would not surrender without a final, desperate gambit. Late one night, as Elias prepared to archive his footage and documents for what might be the final time, his phone buzzed with an alert. It was a video message from an unknown sender. With a sense of foreboding, he played it. The screen flickered to life, and a hooded figure, their face obscured by shadows, appeared. "You think you've won?" the figure intoned, their voice modulated and cold. "But this is only the beginning. The network is far more powerful than you realize. Your efforts have only just made you a target. They will come for you, and when they do, there will be no escaping the consequences." The message ended abruptly, leaving Elias staring at the screen in a mixture of shock and determination. It was clear the final confrontation was imminent. The network, wounded but not defeated, was preparing its counterstrike. Elias realized that his quest for justice had now placed him squarely in the crosshairs of those who would go to any lengths to maintain their grip on power. Over the following days, Elias became increasingly cautious. His movements were shadowed by an ever-present fear of ambush. Friends and allies were discreetly warned. Safe houses were identified. Every step was calculated with the utmost precision. Yet, despite the palpable danger, the community's momentum for change did not falter. The public's outcry, fueled by undeniable evidence and impassioned speeches, had ignited a movement that could not be silenced by intimidation. As the tension reached its peak, a decisive showdown loomed on the horizon. A secret meeting was arranged between the leaders of the movement and key figures within the reformist faction of the police department. The aim was clear: to orchestrate a final, coordinated effort to dismantle the network once and for all. In a hidden location, far from prying eyes, Elias, Andre, Mara, Anna, and several reformed officers gathered to lay out the plan. The atmosphere was charged with urgency. Every whispered discussion and furtive glance carried the weight of imminent danger. Elias addressed the group with a steely resolve. "This is it, the moment we've been preparing for. Our evidence is undeniable, and the people are with us. But we must be prepared for a fierce backlash. The network won't go down without a fight. Our mission is not just to expose corruption. It's to dismantle it piece by piece, until every last hold of their power is broken." His voice echoed in the dimly lit room, a rallying cry that stirred the hearts of all present. Plans were set in motion. A coordinated series of public demonstrations, legal filings, and whistleblower testimonies was scheduled for the coming days. The movement had become a force to be reckoned with, a testament to the power of ordinary citizens armed with courage and truth. As the meeting drew to a close, there was a shared understanding that the coming confrontation could be the most dangerous yet. The network would not allow itself to crumble without unleashing its full might, and the final battle for justice was now inevitable. In the midst of that volatile calm, Elias received one final message, a text that would etch itself into his memory. "The reckoning is near. Are you ready to pay the price for the truth?" It was unsigned, mysterious, and chilling in its implication. In that moment, Elias knew that the final chapter of this saga was upon them. The calm before the storm was ending, and the ultimate showdown between a community's desire for justice and the entrenched forces of corruption was about to begin. With every ounce of determination, Elias stepped out into the rain-soaked streets once more. The city, now a cauldron of hope and tension, awaited its fate. As the thunder rumbled in the distance and lightning danced across the darkened sky, he gripped his camera tightly, a symbol of the relentless pursuit of truth. The battle lines had been drawn, and the forces of change were prepared to clash with the remnants of an oppressive system. And so, as the storm clouds gathered overhead, Elias Carter moved forward into the unknown, ready to face whatever came next. The reckoning was at hand, and in the coming hours, the final price for the truth would be paid. Thank you for joining us on this journey. If you found this story gripping, be sure to subscribe, like, and share for more captivating true crime tales and updates on our ongoing investigations. Your support not only helps us bring these stories to light but also empowers communities to stand up against corruption and abuse of power.